Vince McMahon documentary isn't what I thought it would be by Penguin Z Zero. Let's see what's happened.
Dropped on Vince McMahon. It's called Mr. McMahon. And even before it came out, like a day before it came out, Vince posted a statement on Twitter addressing it. His statement basically says he doesn't have any regrets, which is what everyone with regrets says. You stinkify your ass and then pretend it doesn't.
I'll read it. I don't regret participating in this Netflix documentary. The producers had an opportunity to tell us objective story about my life and the incredible business I built, which were equally filled with excitement, drama, fun, and a fair amount of controversy and life lessons. Unfortunately, based on the earlier partial cut, I've seen this doc fall short and takes the holy shit my headphones. It takes the predictable path of conflating the Mr. McMahon. Mr. McMahon? God damn, my headphones feel weird when I turn my head some way. Character with my true self, Vince, the title and promos alone make that evident. A lot has been misrepresented or left out entirely in an effort to leave viewers intentionally confused. The producers use typical editing tricks without context, footage, and dated sound bites, etc. God, holy shit! To distort the viewer's perception and support a deceptive narrative. In an attempt to further their misleading account, the producers use a lawsuit based on an affair I ended as evidence that I am in fact Mr. McMahon. I hope the viewer will keep an open mind and remember that there are two sides of every story. Holy shit, I just had an aneurysm bringing that shit.
Bother you, and it was actually just part of your master plan. He goes on to say that he thought he was going to be participating in an objective story about his life, but it turns out it was all a misrepresentation, misleading, using editing tricks and out of context footage, smoke and mirrors to distort viewer perception. It's all a bunch of hooey. They trapped you in a genjutsu to make you not like Vince McMahon. When I heard he made this statement, immediately trying to cushion the blow of how bad this documentary must make him look, I went into this expecting a very scathing deep dive into a lot of the deplorable shit Vince McMahon is guilty of doing. There's a lot of there's a lot of accusations around Vince McMahon, but there's a lot of factual, irrefutable proof behind some terrible, horrible shit he is guilty of. And I thought this documentary was going to be getting into the weeds of all of it. Especially because not only did Vince McMahon put out that statement, he apparently even tried to purchase the documentary so it would never see the light of day. So he was actively trying to bury it, according to some sources. So I was like, holy shit, this must blow the lid wide open here. I really thought this documentary was gonna fucking stone cold stunner Vince and finally show to the whole world just what a massive piece of shit he is. He has done so much illegal, deplorable, unforgivable trash throughout his career that it is shocking he is not behind bars. And I thought this documentary was going to aim to tell that side of Vince McMahon, to highlight all of those things. Go over the rape allegations, go over all of the sexual harassment, the sexual abuse, all kinds of horror.
I don't know who this nigga is. I'm just getting word about this. I don't know who this guy is or what he does. But hey, Viva la vie.
Horrible things Vince McMahon has been accused of over the years. I thought this was the documentary that was going to be dropping bombs and going really in depth on all of it with new information. But it doesn't. It's not that kind of documentary. It mentions them, it talks about them briefly, and lets Vince have his statement on his perspective with all of the lawsuits that he's been engaged with over the decades. I really thought this documentary was focusing on that element. That's the impression that I got from all of it. But that's not at all what it is. This docuseries is mainly telling the story of the rise of the WWF and how it became the juggernaut that it is today with the WWE. It talks about Vince and being a ruthless
Oh,
businessman
this
and everything he
guy.
did
Okay.
to not only grow
Unfamiliar now.
wrestling, but grow the WWF into what it is now. It's like a journey through wrestling through the years with Vince McMahon at the helm leading the charge and everything he battled and overcame in order to grow the company. And it sprinkles in a lot of the awful shit like sexual abuse, like rape, in a couple of instances through some episodes, but it's never the focus. And I really thought it would
Episodes.
be. No, it's
I thought
not bad
documentaries
by
was
any
like
means
one
at
cut, like,
all.
not one
Like
cut,
it's
like
a fine
one
documentary,
full
but it's
thing.
mainly for people that don't
don't
know
know if you
anything
checked up
about
and shit.
wrestling or Vince McMahon. Like this is what I would consider like an introductory course to the lore of Vince McMahon and wrestling. Like it gives you little tiddlywinks, little bits and pieces, appetizers of the controversy, the awful shit Vince has done, as well as controversy in wrestling and controversy when growing wrestling, this and that. But it's not really like a slam dunk piece on Vince McMahon. It's not really there challenging Vince McMahon on a bunch of things. They do occasionally challenge him on a couple of his statements in the documentary, but that's not what this docuseries is about, really. And in their defense, at least to a certain extent, this was filmed, like the interviews, most of them, and a lot of the information was filmed before the most recent set of allegations were made public. The Janelle Grant lawsuit. That's the one with all of the extremely graphic detail and the sex trafficking information, the stuff with all the poopy, which became a big talking point with all the feces and the defecation and just all of the really depraved acts of Vince McMahon that were discussed in the Janelle Grant
What?
lawsuit. This took place before that. It is mentioned in the documentary at the beginning as well as hinted out a little bit towards the end, and then the final episode has a little bit more on it, but it never really like fully dives into it or talks about it at length in the documentary. But it does just give you like the basis of it as opposed to giving you a deep dive on it. And I guess I just went in there under the wrong pretense. Like I do think people that know nothing about it will walk away like, damn, this guy really is a villain, and man, the story of wrestling is crazy. But to
Just
anyone that
insane.
knows anything about wrestling and anything about Vince McMahon, there's nothing new here. Except for the interviews. The interviews were pretty insightful. They don't offer new information, but hearing from someone like Vince McMahon directly is fascinating because it's like hearing from somebody that was born without feeling. Like, this is a guy with no remorse and no ability, I believe, to even feel an emotion other than ambition and greed. Like, that is everything, every fiber in his fucking DNA, and nothing else. No love, no sympathy. He is like the devil. One of the best examples of this is when the documentary brings up the alleged rape of Rita Chatterton. Rita Chatterton was a female referee in the WWF that accused Vince McMahon of raping her, and it led to a lawsuit. And the interviewer during the documentary brings this up to Vince McMahon to get his perspective. He claims it was consensual. And then I wrote this next part down verbatim, because this shit was stunning. Like, this shit, a lightning bolt could have hit me and it wouldn't have been as shocking as what Vince McMahon said next. After claiming it was consensual, he said, had it been rape, the statute of limitations had worn off. I'll read that one more time for a little double take, a replay on the...
I go, what? What? No. Play that bad, bro.
the Jumbotron. Had it been rape, the statute of limitations had worn off. Yeah, that sounds like something an innocent man would say. Yeah, certainly a
What?
not guilty person would say.
What makes you say some wild shit like that? While you're saying that shit didn't happen, you say, if it was rape, the statute of limitation was like, I can't. Oh, I
Say something
like,
like that, right? When I tell you I was so surprised I almost squeaked out a fart from my butt cheeks, I'm not lying. I couldn't believe I just heard him say that. Oh, no, it was consensual. Had it been rape, the statute of limitations had worn off anyway. Oh, yeah, shit out of luck, pal. Yeah, sorry about that. No, rape's bad, though. It wasn't that, but I mean, if it was, not much you could do about it. I went back and rewatched it just to make sure that I got the verbiage correct. It turns out I was a little off. What he said was, it was consensual, and actually, had it been rape, the statute of limitations had ran out. It's all kinds of crap like that people are digging up to try and have on you. What was it? To try and find something on you, I think is what it was. Like, that's the whole, that's the whole statement. That's the context. It's not like it's an out of context statement. And what preceded it was, he was talking about how, like, he's been accused of so many things like rape that, you know, he doesn't even, like, really pay it much of a mind anymore. So he just talks about this so nonchalantly. So even though the information there isn't new, that allegation of Vince McMahon raping Rita has been around for a long time. It is a new lens on it because now Vince weighs in, and wow, he expertly weighs in on it. Man, what a guy. But yeah, overall, there's no new info per se in it, but it is definitely interesting to hear the interviews and perspectives of, you know, some of the best wrestlers of all time, and Vince McMahon himself directly talking about some of this shit. There's also a lot of, like, moments in the documentary where Vince McMahon says something, and then the documentary will show you the exact opposite to highlight how Vince McMahon just can't stop fucking lying most of the time. Like, you can't trust
I gotta check
anything
this
that
shit
comes
out,
of his
dog.
mouth. Like, so Vince McMahon will
I
blatantly
guess
lie about
to,
something,
bro.
and the documentary then played like a clip that immediately contradicts what he said, which I appreciate, and that does, like, critique him and criticize him, challenge him to a certain extent. I just thought that was going to be most of the content of the documentary, and it's not. That's just a component of it. The bulk of the documentary is, again, on the rise of the WWF and the ascension into this multi-billion-dollar company, and all the controversies that led to it, and all the business decisions that led to it, and all the people involved, not just Vince. So I do want to reiterate that it's not a bad documentary, but it's one I went into with the wrong perception of what I was going to be watching. Anyway, though, just kind of wanted to talk about that. Vince McMahon is a huge piece of shit. I do recommend at least watching this to get the basics on some of the horrible shit, not even the full story on all of his crimes and awful, horrible, unforgivable shit that he's done over the years, but it's at least a good Cliff Notes version of it. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah.
Another classic about the Penguin. Oh, fuck. This shit. What the fuck?